This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
Okay, Grant, it's a Wednesday edition. How you doing today, sir?
Doing all right, even though it's Hump Day.
It is Hump Day, and we're definitely feeling the full effects of Hump Day. I had to ask you right away how you were doing. And normally I ask you just what day it is, but I had to make sure you were with me. We both kind of staggered into the studio this morning. We're just like, oh gosh, like it's time for another show. We're excited about the show, but it's just the school and the life and just
wish it was Friday show.
Exactly. Friday shows are so much better because it's usually the most fun because we usually pack the studio full of exciting people, but then also it's also Friday, which means, no more school, at least for a little bit. But
you're almost done. So
I am. I've got, I don't even know, 31 days, something like that. You
can see the light.
I can see the light. It's faint. It's flickering in the corner of the room, but I see it, and I want to go towards it, Grant. I want to go to the light. No, I won't go to the light, not yet. But Grant, where can the good people go to the light of our social media pages?
Jeez, your transitions are gross.
Thank you.
So they can find us on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show. You can also find us at Twitter at BG Sports Show. You can email us at bgsportshow@gmail.com. And you can also Instagram us, and by using the hashtag the Bax Grant Sports Show, the picture that you tag that with will pop up on Sports Radio America.
Yes, indeed. We love to be able to see your sports pride with your favorite teams. As you can see, we've got jerseys on the back wall behind us. We've got all kinds of memorabilia. You can make sure to check out our Instagram. Intern Laura will be posting pictures, as she normally does, throughout certain things. She's actually doing it at this exact second, so that's how good we are. We're in sync like that. She's tweeting about it. She's Instagramming it. We got all that going on for us. Remember as well, though, the cool new thing about our show is that you can watch the show now. We are available on thecube.com. That is, C-U-B-E, Cube. And you can watch the show there if you prefer to look into the studio. It's kind of like a Mike and Mike feel now where it's still primarily audio. 90% of our distribution is now audio. But you can also check out what's going on in the studio when we have guests if you want to actually watch it. Some people prefer to do sports shows like this. And we talk with our hands a lot. So if you like to see the good Italian like I am talking with my hands, that's what it is. And if just in general, some people just are more engaged that way. But aside from that, you can also listen to our show on sportsradioamerica.com. That is from 12 to 3 Eastern. That also broadcast on TuneIn Radio, Live 365, and sportsradioamerica.com. Yeah, you can also listen to our show live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Central on Spreaker.com. And then you can also download our podcast at iTunes as well. So, Grant, with an exciting show lined up, we've been talking about NHL. We've got some NBA playoffs. But before we get to all of that, we're going to be talking about the U.S. men's national team in brief. I know that you are a fan of soccer in the terms of a very casual fan of,
yes.
It's been 4 years, it's probably time for another World Cup kind of fan.
Yeah, pretty much.
But there's nothing wrong with that. As a U.S. soccer fan through and through, I will take that support. And I would have a normal heated debate with you about you should be more involved, but it's fine.
I have my other sports
exactly, and that's
I've gotten
the thing.
Involved with.
That's the thing. As long as you at least support for that brief amount of time, that's all that matters. But tonight marks another rivalry game in the USA versus Mexico men's soccer team rivalry game. The game will be held down in San Antonio in the Alamo Dome. Remember the Alamo, Grant?
Woo!
Yeah. Do you remember the Alamo history class?
I've never been to the Alamo.
I haven't either. I want to.
I have, of course, learned about it in the history class.
I hope so.
Alamo and the Goliad. Two key battles. Anyway, I'm not going to.
Look at you! I'm so proud. I couldn't even remember the goal yet. I know the Alamo. And is it Davy Crockett, right?
Yeah.
Okay, or is it? Yeah. Daniel Boone. I don't remember. I think it's Davy Crockett. I don't know. We're sports. We're not history. Anyway, but speaking of history with the U.S. men's national team, overall, Grant, there's 17, 32, and 14 overall against Mexico. Not exactly the most positive record, and those are ties, by the way. The last one, not overtime wins or losses for you hockey guys, just so you're aware. But the record has gotten better for the U.S. men's national team since 2000. They're 12-5-5. So statistically, you'd like to say, "Oh, this team is getting better." But Grant, last time they played, it was not as good as you would have liked it to have been. The sides drew in their most recent meeting 2-2. The U.S. was up to their normal 2-0, which is kind of the hashtag and fun thing that goes with the game because the U.S. has beat them 2-0 several times. So U.S. soccer fans like to mock the Hispanics by mocking them in their own language, of course, because that's how nice we are. Is we say, ha, 2-0. So we were up 2, which is dos, which is and, 0. 2, is there, just,
I understand.
See what I'm going with that? Okay, anyway.
I'm not a complete idiot, I know.
Okay, I love you. Thank you. So, 2-0. We were up 2-0 last year, and then unfortunately, they came back and allowed 2 second-half goals because of different line changes and all that fun jazz. But either way, this game will be interesting because 14 players from Major League Soccer have been called up for this game, Grant. It's an exciting time to see Major League Soccer as a whole growing. Mexico is not bringing in all of their star players, but it's still international friendly. It's still USA-Mexico. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, and I think a lot of people are really looking forward to that. Now the U.S. continues to struggle with Jurgen Klinsmann, though, as a head coach because he likes to have all these new lineups, all these new players coming in, and there's no real consistency with what he's doing. And I feel like that can really hurt the growth of a team as a whole if you can't call in the same players all the time. And I understand it. We're still 3 years away from the next World Cup, but at some point you need to start nailing down consistent players saying, hey, these are going to be my starting defenders, starting goalies, starting midfielders, starting forwards, and there's a certain level of consistency that you need to worry about because if you keep losing international friendly games, regardless if they mean anything or not, people are going to start to talk.
Right. And I just have a question for you.
Please.
With Jurgen Klinsmann and, you know, talking about, like, he likes switching players up and stuff like that. Is that more because he comes from a German background and Germany normally has more a depth of a talent pool that they can grab more talented players than here in the United States that we're a newer soccer or football country?
It really depends on how you look at it because Germany's talent pool is insanely deep. That's just the honest truth. But Germany is also very consistent with the same 15 to 25 guys that see the field. Because they have their guys. They're like, look, these are the best players in the world. Regardless if it's international friendly or not, you'll still get those new up-and-coming guys, but it's so difficult to break into the first team for Germany because those guys are so talented and play many, many years with it. So for the U.S., there isn't that consistent, like, oh, we got to have these 10 guys or 11 guys on the field because they're the best. It's like, well, we've got 5, 6 really good guys, and then all these other guys over here. So that's probably the thought behind Klinsmann right now is he's like, you know what? I know I've got Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Tim Howard, and somebody else. I don't even know, depending on the day really. And then I need to figure out who my other guys are going to be to fill the gaps. So that's kind of, I'm assuming, his reasoning for going all over the place with it, but at the same time, it gets really annoying after a while because it's like, okay, you've seen everybody that's pretty much available in the talent pool. Let's start consistently, nailing some things down. It just gets annoying, at least from a U.S. soccer perspective. But that game will be tonight on Fox Sports 1. Make sure to tune in on that. It'll be 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Now, Grant, moving away from the soccer world into something that you can actually help kind of keep the conversation going with.
Hey,
you did. You asked a question, and
I asked a good question.
I appreciated your question. I really did.
And I knew something about Germany.
You did?
Because they're my favorite team, really. I know, I'm totally not American with me.
That's okay. I mean, my heritage is Italian, so I'm a fan of the Azzurri, as they were. That's their name.
I guess I know. I still cheer for the men's national team, and when they played Germany earlier last year in the Cup, I was, of course, cheering for the United States. But when they got beat out by Belgium, I was like,
I was upset about that.
Well, I mean, yes and no for me because U.S. barely hung in there. But my ancestors are from Belgium actually, so it's like.
You were like, yeah, pride. I know, everybody is suddenly what's my heritage when it comes to the World Cup? As soon as the USA loses, everyone's like, oh, I'm actually a Swedish fan, or oh, I'm actually a Spain fan. It's like,
I go over to Germany. Stop. I go over and cheer for Germany. After.
No, and that's for me too. As soon as the USA is out, I'm like, Italy, Italy, Italy. Unless they play each other, then I'm like, I don't know, whoever wins. But Grant, the Seattle Seahawks ended the Green Bay Packers season.
We're not talking about
Too early, Grant.
We're not
Way too
talking
early.
about it.
But I've been invested with these magical powers, Grant, to provide you with a do-over.
Oh.
And the way that this do-over works is that you get to go through. It's not. I can't. My powers don't apply to the playoffs, unfortunately.
Playoffs.
But if you go to the regular season last year, the Green Bay Packers lost 4 games. As you know, they lost to the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, the New Orleans Saints, and the Buffalo Bills. My question to you, Grant, is if you could do a do-over for one of those 4 losses, which game would it be and why?
All right. Well, my I need to talk here for a second.
It's
English.
okay.
The game I would choose is the Detroit Lions game, which the Packers lost 19-7 in Week 3. Couple of reasons for that is the big one for me was that it really took away a lot of Green Bay's momentum. Nobody was expecting them to go 1-2 in the season. They almost went 0-3 because they almost lost to the New York Jets, who were actually a thing at the beginning of the season.
Which is funny to say.
It is, and everybody was saying, "Oh, they're not too bad," and then they kind of went south.
They did
anyway,
normal Jet things,
but the Packers had to make a huge drive at the end of the game to win that game. Anyway, they went 1-2, and people were started getting nervous. Aaron Rodgers was like, "Relax," his whole thing.
Relax,
but it was really uneasy. It kind of set the momentum in the wrong way. And then the big thing for me, pretty much the entire season, we were looking up at the Lions and trying to catch the Lions. The Green Bay Packers were trying to catch the Lions, and they didn't play them again until the very last game of the year. So it was always the Lions have the tiebreaker if they tie the Lions, and the Green Bay Packers need to really step it up, otherwise the Lions have the game up on them. And so that was really nerve-wracking, especially for me and other fans out there, is because it really set the tone for the whole season when those games were split up like that. Because the Lions always had the game up on them for the entire season until the Packers eventually did tie it. Another thing was that the big deal for the Packers, their big weapon is offense. They don't have the strongest defense. Their offense is their big thing. And their offense struggled. They really struggled in this game. They only scored 1 touchdown, and Aaron Rodgers did not have a fantastic performance. He was 16 for 27 with 162 yards and a touchdown, and there wasn't really good rushing. Starks and Eddie Lacy, Starks had 38 yards and Eddie Lacy had 36 yards, and it wasn't a great performance by them. And the really big thing about it was that the Detroit Lions, they had a very injured defense already by week 3.
They did,
their big players out. They were trying to get players in, just trying to get them into play because they needed people to fill the spots, and they were supposedly a very weak defense, and the defense scored more points than the offense did.
Than the Packers offense.
And the Packers offense did. And it was kind of gross just to watch the game, to see the Green Bay Packers offense struggle against the defense that bad. But then looking back to the rest of the season, now we're looking forward, depending what standpoint you're taking it from, because if you're looking at week 3 and then you look forward to the rest of the season, how well the Lions defense actually did throughout the rest of the season, it was like, oh, they're actually not that bad. But that week, it was like, this defense shouldn't be anything.
And that's why Packer fans were so enraged, because Detroit would literally sign guys into their secondary days before off of practice squads. There was even one guy that wasn't even in the NFL. And they said, hey, you used to be in the NFL. We need a secondary. Come play for us. They were literally signing guys off the streets, Grant. And they managed to outscore the Packers and beat the Packers 19-7. Now, it was very disturbing, and obviously it made more sense later on because it was like, oh, Detroit is actually kind of a good team. And then they proved that, and yes, they controversial playoff call, whatever. Detroit, you have to commend them for how well they did this season.
Right.
They really did. They put it together. Their defense was scary good for a while, and they were able to make a pretty good run into the playoffs. Now, Grant, if I'm being granting myself the do-over game, I would take the Week 8 game against the New Orleans Saints, where they lost 44-23. Regardless of the fact that Aaron Rodgers threw for 418 yards in this game, they played horribly. Absolutely horrible. Drew Brees went on national television on NBC on Sunday Night Football and embarrassed the Packers defense. The man had a marquee game, and the Packers offense could not respond, regardless of Rodgers throwing for almost 420 yards. Eddie Lacy could not get the ball moving. He only had 59 yards for the day. Jordy Nelson didn't even break 100 to my knowledge. Randall Cobb did have 126 receiving yards, which is good, but the Packers defense, that was really when people were starting to freak out, because they're like, hey, we beat the Bears, the Vikings, the Dolphins, and the Panthers going into that game. Like, oh, we're riding some momentum. Let's go 5-0 after the Detroit game going into the bye week, and then everything will be fine. Well, then they go out and get embarrassed, and I think that was really a big reality check for the Packers. And I think the Packers had two reality checks this year. It was the Saints game, and then it was the Buffalo game towards the end of the year, which we know that they lost as well, 21-13, because we had this debate earlier during the Packers season 2 about peaking. Peaking too high. They peaked at the wrong time, Grant. Well, there's no such thing as peaking. Either you have momentum or you don't. Regardless of however you feel about that. Right. But even still, that really helped Green Bay kind of find themselves going into the bye week, and they came back and then scored a combined total of 108 points in 2 games against the Bears and the Eagles. So they kind of got their offense going again with that. But if I could do anything over, I would do over that Saints game, because New Orleans was having a terrible year up until that point. Green Bay was on a 4-game winning streak. Drew Brees, yes, he had a great game, but I believe that the Packers defense would love to have a do-over for that game just to kind of find themselves again.
Does it help, though, in the grand scheme of things with the Packers season in general, that the bye week was directly after that game? Do you think that gave the Packers some time just to take a breath and just say, okay, let's take a good look at this game and see what we can fix?
I think so, because they had lost that Detroit game week 3. They had their offense exploded in weeks 4 and 5 against the Bears and Vikings. They went down to Miami, played a close game, and won it on the last play of the game. And then Carolina wasn't too big of a test. So I feel like maybe they were almost a little overconfident going into the Saints game, and then a bad Saints team was able to just beat up on them and expose the Packers' lack of secondary. So at that point, they were probably like, you know what? We've played 8 games. We've had 2 losses, which is kind of surprising to them at that point. We almost lost the 3rd game to the Dolphins. We need to take a minute, regroup, and relax, and then play Chicago and Philly and finish out the season.
They handled pretty nicely.
They did. And then they almost lost to Minnesota the next week, 24-21. But either way, so Grant is taking the redo for the Detroit game in Week 3 where they lost 19-7, and I'm redoing the Saints game in Week 8. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Grant is ready and excited to talk about the NHL playoffs, and whatifsports.com also has their predictions for us as well. So we are going to check in on those and get Grant's feedback and go from there. This is the Baxton Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
All right, Grant, the NHL playoffs are going to be getting in full swing, as it were. The puck drops here, as it were. I'm just trying to think of as many. You need to... Don't check me into the boards, bro.
They don't swing their sticks, by the way.
They snap. They whoosh, whatever
if
that
you go
is.
up to a hockey player and say, "Can you swing the stick and hit
they
the
actually
puck?"
would swing it at me.
They will swing it at you
and drop me.
Yeah,
which would
they will
probably
take your head off with it.
I probably deserve it. I don't know. That's why I'm surprised I'm even allowed to work in the sports industry as it is. But anyway, Grant, our good friends over at whatifsports.com have officially released their predictions for the 2015 NHL playoffs. Now, for those of you that don't know what whatifsports.com is, they are a sports website that is capable of simulating games in mass bulk to produce the most mathematically and statistically possible outcomes for games. You can also go back. There's multiple different sports: football, basketball, college football, baseball, hockey. You can pick any team basically since the beginning of time. So if you want to do Adam and Eve versus, Noah, you can simulate that game and see if Noah would have gone a triple-double against Cain and Abel back in the day. But anyway, or maybe the George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, all those guys. But you can simulate the games based off of stats and everything from that time, and they have an algorithm that posts all the things, and it's really cool.
It's fun.
For sports geeks like Grant and I, we love it. But
you just waste so much time.
You really do.
Getting like, what if this happened, and what if this happened, and just
exactly
doing it over and over
again. And it goes
again.
along
It's
perfectly, because today's What If Wednesday, and we'll be playing it with intern Laura later on, where we each ask ourselves a what if question. So, Grant, looking through what whatifsports.com posted, you looking first, the first game, they had the Montreal Canadiens. Did I say it right?
You said it right.
Yay! And the Ottawa Senators, and they have the Canadiens winning the series 4-1. Your thoughts about that?
I would say that that's not too big of a shocker, even though that the Ottawa Senators, to get into the playoffs, had to go on a pretty decent winning streak at the end of the season. So they do have some momentum, but the Canadiens, they're just a great team. They're a fantastic team. They had over 100 points this year, and they just... I think they won't have too big of a problem with the Ottawa Senators.
Is a 4-1 series appropriate? Do you feel like that there's no real reason that they should lose that? Or do you think they'll at least lose one game?
I mean, it's always possible, because we've talked about it before with hockey, is that the teams in hockey, you can just be an okay hockey team and win a decent amount of games.
Yes.
It's actually not even okay. Most hockey teams are pretty good, because hockey players are really good. And I think it's a really underrated thing, is that to be good at hockey, you have to be pretty good about it. I forget who I was talking to, but I was talking to Connor Christensen, who is on Mondays and Fridays, and he was watching actually Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues game, the last game of the season.
Yep.
And he said it's a pretty standard play. What happened? It was just a cross crease, and then I forget who the player was, put it top shelf.
What does that even mean?
Cross crease, he went across the crease with the puck.
Okay.
It wasn't even a cross crease. It was pretty close. Anyway, it was a pretty good play, but it was an average play. And you see it every day, and it blew Connor's mind.
Sure.
That people can get that good. And I was like, yeah, the average player in the NHL could do that, in my opinion. So, anyway, getting back to the point.
A 4-1 series, though, seems
yeah,
appropriate.
A 4-1 series could be appropriate. Maybe even 4-2, but definitely the Canadians.
Come on, Grant.
Canadians winning the series.
Okay. Looking ahead then, the 2 and 3 seed, you have the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Detroit Red Wings, and whatifsports.com has the Lightning winning 4-1 again. Now, the way these games work is they simulate every series 1,001 times. Just so that way...
Series, not games?
How did they say they did it? I thought that's how it was. We simulated the entire NHL... Oh, I'm sorry. They simulated the entire playoffs 1,001 times using the current season rosters and statistics. Home ice advantage is taken into account. Average wins and losses per series are indicated in the white boxes within the bracket. So that's how they did it. So they run the entire playoff series 1,001 times, and then...
So, in effect, they did the series 1,001
yes,
times.
that just sounds tiring. Anyway, so Detroit losing to the Lightning 4-1. That seemed about fair in that regards. Detroit, not an awful team, as we know.
I would say that I could see the Lightning taking the series, but I don't think it's going to be that wide of a gap. I think that the Red Wings will make it a little more interesting than that. Possibly them even winning the series. That's a little bit more of a long shot, but I could see it possibly happening. But the Lightning definitely, in my opinion, I think will win.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to take away from your spotlight for a second, but I just got a notification from Bleacher Report saying that former New England Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez has officially been found guilty of first-degree murder and will get life sentence without possibility of parole.
Wow.
So that just happened. Finally. They finally, after, 2 years ago?
I think so.
2 years ago, it has finally come out.
Yeah, they've been having the trial for a while and stuff like that.
They have. So that just, I didn't mean to interrupt the NHL, but
no,
I feel like
okay.
with something interesting like
right.
that is so appropriate.
One more thing for Goodell to deal with.
Exactly. And we'll get into that a whole nother time. But anyway, moving on to the next game, the New York Rangers are predicted to go 4-0 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I was surprised by this because Pittsburgh's not a terrible team.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is definitely not an awful team, but what you have to take into account, though, is that their momentum is... Okay, you can argue a couple things with their momentum. You could say, yes, they have fought off the Boston Bruins. Everybody's thanking them for getting them out of the playoffs. Woo! And they've had that, but the only reason they got into that situation is because they had an awful closing end of the season.
Yes.
And the Rangers...
And the Penguins barely made it in, didn't they?
Right, the Penguins took the last wild card spot. Yeah. And the Rangers won the President's Cup. Or the President's Trophy, excuse me.
It's arguably the best versus the worst. For the teams that made the playoffs.
Yeah, within reason.
Yeah.
But the Penguins not winning a game, I don't see that. And I think that the Rangers, yes, people are picking them to win the cup they're picking them to win the cup.
Yes.
But just because they won the President's Trophy.
Well, that's not very nice.
And I don't think the Rangers aren't the clear-cut team. There's a lot of people saying a couple different teams. So I think if just having the Rangers go 4-0, I don't think they're going to go 4-0. I don't even see the Penguins losing the series. I could see the Penguins winning the series.
Do you think the Penguins could pull the upset in that?
I think they could.
Okay.
I think if there would be a team to do it, I wouldn't think the Capitals could. I don't think the Islanders could. Maybe the Lightning, if they meet them in the conference finals,
could take out the Penguins.
Could possibly take out the Rangers.
Oh, take out the Rangers. Okay.
The best team in the Eastern Conference, I would say, would be the Penguins.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that's going to be a good series.
Okay, and we will be seeing your official predictions for the playoffs coming either today on the show, depending on if you have them, or later on, you'll release them on our Facebook page as well. So keep in mind for that. We'll have it after the show. After the show,
okay. I was just told this.
Grant will
right
post
now.
his predictions. I thought you had it. I'm sorry. Maybe I misinterpreted. But Grant will have his official predictions of how he feels the NHL playoffs will go. Unbiased, of course, with the St. Louis Blues. Anyway, the next game, you have the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders. Two New York teams playing each other, Grant. You're going to be not playing each other, but playing in the playoffs. Both
the
New
Capitals
York
and the Islanders?
No, the Rangers and the Islanders. Two New York teams are in the playoffs. That's what I said.
Oh,
but
okay.
I know, the Washington Capitals, I'm well aware they're from... No.
I was like, they're not playing each other.
No. The Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders. WhatIfSports.com has the Capitals winning the series 4-1. We both kind of talked about this on Monday. The Islanders, they're an okay team. They're not that great. You said that you wouldn't be shocked at the same time because this series is kind of going to be the first team to 10 goals.
Right. That was the if the Penguins and the Capitals played each other. Yeah, that was the Capitals and the Penguins played each other. The Islanders, they were a great team middle of the season, maybe towards middle end of the season, but definitely they've dropped the ball or the puck. However you want to say.
They dropped the puck, Grant. Get the sport right.
They dropped the puck near the end of the season.
And you say, I don't know hockey. Come on.
And even more so than the Penguins did, they really just fell off the face of the earth. They fell off the face of the earth in terms of hockey. So it was not a great end of the season, and I can see the Capitals definitely taking to them in this because Capitals are a deadly team. They're a deadly offensive team.
They are.
And the Islanders have just not shown much strength going into the end of the season.
And the Capitals also hold the leading scorer in NHL for this 2014-2015 season with Alexander Ovechkin as well. So that kind of helps as well that you have the best goal scorer on your team.
Yeah, but the only thing is that their goaltender, Brandon Holtby, is, yes, he is a good goaltender, but he has had a lot of fatigue as of late, playing a lot of games, so that is an issue to take into account. And he's a pretty decent goaltender, but in my opinion, he is not the best goaltender.
No,
So
he's definitely not.
That is...
It's not a Martin Brodeur.
Well, he's retired.
He's probably still better.
I wouldn't say that. At this... Currently, no. I would
Currently,
not say
no?
that.
Currently,
no.
at this time? Okay.
At this time, no.
Okay.
In the day, in Brodeur's day,
In Brodeur's
no question.
day. Okay, sounds good. All right, looking ahead, then you've got the St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild, two teams very near and dear to
This
your
is
heart.
tough.
But What If Sports has the Blues winning it in 7, winning the series 4-3.
but still, that if the Blues are going to win a series, though,
Would it
they're
have
not-
to go to 7?
They're not going to sweep. They're not going to sweep a series. The Blues were never that kind of team. They're
No.
not a big flashy team. That's not how they win series. They just bare knuckle brawl, you might say, to win a series. But they just got a really tough draw with. The Wild had an awful start to their season and then had a fantastic mid-January
Yes.
to the end of the season.
If they were a stock on Wall Street, people would be buying the Wild stock like crazy because
Right.
they were like, oh, they're so bad, and then just through the roof.
Yeah, and it's got a really tough draw because then everybody else in the Central started picking up the pace, and the Wild got stuck with the wild card spot.
I laughed
Didn't
in
even
my
mean-
head, and then you looked at me. I'm like, okay,
Because I didn't even
loud.
mean to say that. I was like, oh. So it's kind of a tough draw for the Blues, but I mean, you're going to have to win good teams to take the whole thing.
Yes.
So I mean, no use complaining about it. Get the first team out of the way.
Yep.
Get a hard team out of the way first. So it's going to be a tough series. I could see the Blues winning the series, but it's going to be extremely close. One question that is going to be big for the Wild is that Devin Dubnyk,
Doobie.
their fantastic goaltender, came out of nowhere. Has played great. He has played with the Blues since he came on. He has played every single game except one, and then he got pulled out to rest in the third period against the Blues. So there's another fatigue issue, but then some positives for the St. Louis Blues is that they just got Alexander. I think Alex or Alexander. I think it's Alexander Steen.
Okay.
And
Call him
Vladimir. I'll call him Al.
Al.
And then Vladimir Tarasenko are back from injury.
Okay.
So it's good news. Two top line players.
That'll definitely. Now's
from
the
the
time
Blues.
to get them back,
Right.
especially playoff time.
And it was last year was awful because the Blues lost big players and then lost last 6 games of the season, lost the President's Trophy, and didn't get some of their players back until they were already in the series with the Chicago Blackhawks, which
Yes.
they ended up losing. So it's nice for all the players to be back.
Okay. All right. Looking ahead to the last 3 remaining first-round games, we'll kind of briefly scoot through this. The Predators are predicted to beat the Blackhawks 4-3. I feel like that game's going to be that series is going to be a dogfight as a whole. We know the Predators are a scary team.
I don't agree with that, though, because the Predators have been nothing as of late.
Okay.
They have won the games where they've needed to, but they have not been the Nashville Predators that they were at the beginning of the season. Remember that one point in the season where they lost like 7 games in a row, and then they won like the 1 or 2 games, and then they ended up losing more
Yes.
games. So they have...
That was kind of when we started talking about hockey on the show. Is we were like, oh, the Predators, and then they just dropped, and then they dropped, and 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 I'm like, where did the Predators go?
Yeah, they had...
They lost, you said 9 games in a row, right?
7. They lost 7 games in a row. I don't know if they're counting overtime losses in that or not, but I remember it was 7, and not great at all. And the Blackhawks have been on more of a hot streak.
They have.
And they're a really good team, and they're a tough team to play. And a lot of people are favoring them because everybody likes the Blackhawks.
They do.
And
A friend of mine's selling Blackhawks playoff tickets for $200 if you want to go.
nah, I'm
No,
good.
not about that life.
But I don't think they're.
If it's a Blues Blackhawks playoff game, would you go to that?
Oh,
You'd
definitely.
would you sell your child to go to that game?
Maybe not my child.
Okay.
I'd sell you, but
Okay. Sell intern Laura. I don't know. No.
Yeah, but I do not think the Predators are going to win the series 4-3. I don't think they're going to win the series at all. I think the Blackhawks are going to win the series 4-2, actually.
Okay, sounds good. And then you've got the Ducks and the Jets. They have the Anaheim Ducks beating the Winnipeg Jets 4-3.
Which is really interesting.
Is it?
Because
Yes.
the Ducks are won the conference, and the Jets have the last wild card spot, and that's how the pairing up works for the playoffs. And the Jets, they're another one of these teams that had to fight to get their way into the playoffs. They had to win more games so they could keep the people that were gnawing at their heels off. And so they have had a good end of the season, but so have the Ducks. They finished very strong. People were a little worried because they kind of flew under the radar, but then they picked it back up and started winning more games.
I wonder how Marcus Mariota is going to do for them. No? Not that kind? Not the Oregon Ducks?
Not the Oregon Ducks.
Oh, well.
No. But it's surprising that they have the series going to Game 7 and the Ducks winning in Game 7. If it does go to Game 7, though, I would say that the Ducks would take in any day of the week.
Okay, and then the last one in the first round, you have the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames. WhatIfSports.com has the Flames beating the Canucks 4-2. Seems kind of fair to my knowledge. I mean,
it's going to be a really good series
It
because
is.
these are two, I would say, they're not underrated. They're just under the radar because they're not huge teams like the Rangers or the Lightning or the Predators or Blackhawks or who have you.
Yes.
They're not huge teams that are noted to have a lot of talent, but they're still good teams, obviously, because they made it to the playoffs.
Of course.
So it's not going to be a series that a lot of people are watching, but it's going to be a series that's going to be really close. So that's going to be one that I want to pay attention to because any close series is going to be a good one. So I think it's personally going to go to Game 7, but I do think that the Calgary Flames are going to win that one.
Okay, well, looking fast, we don't have a ton of time, unfortunately, but we're going to scoot through just the remainder of their picks, and then Grant has the last power rankings of the regular season for NHL, and then we've got your rant as well. So, looking at the remainder of the simulation for WhatIfSports.com in the conference semifinals, Grant, they have the Montreal Canadiens losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2. Surprise, not surprise?
Not surprised.
Not
I can
surprised.
see that happening.
Yep. The New York Rangers beating the Washington Capitals 4-3. 7-game series? Is New York
I can see a
not gonna let that
7-game
happen?
series. That's a close one to call. I would say Rangers over Capitals, but if I'm wrong, I wouldn't be shocked because I could see the Capitals.
Okay.
I could see the Capitals winning.
That would be good, yeah. And then you have the St. Louis Blues going to 7 games with the Nashville Predators, but the Predators winning 4-3. You were a little upset about this when we
No,
when we
because
were
I
looking.
don't see the Predators making it out of the first round, because that's why. I don't see them winning. I see, in my mind, I see the conference semifinals being, in that little chunk of the bracket, either being Blues Blackhawks or Wild Blackhawks.
That makes sense,
I
yeah.
can see that. I don't see the Predators winning the Blackhawks series at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. So seeing that the Predators would beat the Blues 4-3, nuh-uh. That's not happening.
Okay.
In my opinion.
No, that's all that matters, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And then the last one in the conference semifinals, you have the Anaheim Ducks losing to the Calgary Flames 4-1.
I do not see that.
Don't
I
see
do
that
not
happening?
see that
okay.
happening.
Well, you're not going to get happy as we continue to go on here.
I know.
Conference finals, Tampa Bay Lightning losing to the New York Rangers 4-2. That's more than likely going to be the two teams, though, in that top half of the bracket, right? Lightning
Depending
Rangers?
how well the
Or
Penguins
Capitals.
or the Capitals do.
Yeah.
But yes, you could say Rangers or Lightning. I would not be surprised by that. The Canadiens could beat the Lightning, but I don't think they are. So I would say that Lightning and Rangers are your most likely conference finals. And honestly, either two of those teams can take that. I know people are going to be pulling for the Rangers because they won the President's Trophy and whatnot. But I could see
the overall one seed, as
Right.
it were. Yeah, people want them to win.
So I could see obviously see them winning, but I could also see the Lightning winning because they're a really good team. So it's going to be really close.
It's true. And then the last one of the conference finals, you have the Predators losing to the Calgary Flames 4-2. I know you are enraged. You are inflamed because you're all upset about that.
That is not the conference finals in the Western Conference that you're going to see. It's going to be either the Wild or the Blues against the Ducks. That's what
You
it's
think
going to
it's
be.
gonna be the Ducks?
It's
Okay.
going to be the Ducks against the Wild or the Blues.
Okay. And then the Stanley Cup final, WhatIfSports.com is predicting it will be the New York Rangers beating the Calgary Flames 4-1. So at least the Flames get extinguished in the end.
Yeah, but they're not making it that far.
No?
The Flames are not going that far. I can see the Rangers winning the whole thing.
And if they do, I'm going to be like, ha, ha. No, I'm not that kind of guy. Well, I'm a little bit that kind of guy. But either way, real quick, just tell us the top 5 in NHL power rankings before we go to your rant, Grant.
The New York Rangers in the 1 spot, with Anaheim right behind them in 2. St. Louis is staying at 3. The Montreal Canadiens in the 4 spot, and the Tampa Bay Lightning in number 5.
Any objections to those top 5?
None at all. I just want to check where the Calgary Flames land. They land at 10. They land behind the Winnipeg Jets.
And the Blackhawks are 12, though.
Yeah, but the Blackhawks are way better than that 12 spot. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they dropped 7 spots, it looks like, too, from their last race.
Yeah, because they lost a couple games to the Blues, and they did not. They had a bad week. That's basically what this is saying. They did not have a good week, but I can see the Blackhawks beating whoever they're playing in the first game, which I'm forgetting at the moment.
It happens.
Who are they playing?
Blackhawks.
Predators. Yeah,
That's
okay, Predators.
Okay.
I can see them beating the Predators, so.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, it's time for your rant, Grant. We're going a little rogue with our time today. I know
We are.
We're a little long, but the playoffs needed to be talked about.
Yes.
The NHL playoffs.
The NHL is important. It doesn't get the
press it deserves.
It does not get the press
When
it
it comes
deserves.
time for MLS playoffs in the fall, you better believe we're doing a whole show on it, Grant. No, I'm not going to do that, but I still want to talk about it. All right, 30 seconds on the clock for you, sir. On your mark, get set, and go.
So, in my opinion, the biggest disgrace in the NFL is the lack of attention that almost every single NFL team is giving to the fullbacks. The Green Bay Packers just recently signed John Kuhn. Yeah, it's great. He's a big fan favorite, everything like that. But they paid him the base salary of $875,000. I know, poor him. Wow, but it's
nice.
Still every team almost every team in the NFL does not give the respect to the fullbacks.
It's true. Respect the fullback. He makes the running back look good.
Very few teams even carry fullbacks on the team now.
What's a fullback?
Exactly.
Nobody knows.
The I formation is a dwindling thing.
It is. Bring it back. Vince Lombardi. Bring the power I and all those things. Anyway, we're going to take a fast break. When we come back, Grant, what if the NBA playoffs were single elimination games? Who would win? And intern Laura's here, and it is What If Wednesday as well. So we'll be right back. This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
Okay, Grant, before we wrap up today's show, we've got a whole host of things to try to pack into a very short amount of time. Starting with the NBA playoffs. We're only going to do the East right now because, time and stuff. So neither 8 seed is officially locked up, but I'm going to the way we're going to do it is we're going to play single elimination just for the first round, and then we'll revisit this at another time when we actually have time. We'll bring in Megan Landvatter and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, first round single elimination, Atlanta Hawks versus either the Pacers or Brooklyn Nets. Don't really see anything being an option there. I think the Atlanta Hawks win. One game series.
What do you mean by single elimination?
One game.
One game.
One game. One
Just
night of
make
glory.
that clear.
One night of glory. That's it. Hawks, Pacers, Nets, whoever. Hawks win.
Yep, I could see that.
Cavaliers, Celtics.
I could see the Cavaliers having no problem with that.
Even
game.
with the Celtics being on a hot streak right now?
Even with the Celtics being on a hot streak.
Cavaliers are through. Bulls, Bucks.
As much as I would like to say the Bucks would win their first series, I would say the Chicago Bulls.
Yes, I would have to agree with that. Raptors, Wizards.
I don't like the Wizards because I don't like John Wall, and I don't think he is the point guard that everybody says he is. I think he's an awful player. I don't think he deserves to be a highly noted star in the NBA. So with that being said, I would say the Raptors would
So you're
win
taking the
game.
Wizards? Is that what I heard?
No,
you're
no.
taking the Raptors.
Yes.
Okay, I see. I would take the Wizards in that game. Because I don't mind John Wall.
We'll see, because you're a bad person. You don't know what you're talking about.
Thanks. You know who's not a bad person, though?
Who?
Intern Laura. That's who's not a bad person. Depending on the day. No, we love Intern Laura. But it is Wednesday, which means Intern Laura has returned to the studio, so all is right with the world. How you doing, Laura?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing just great. It's exciting to have you back. We always miss you on Mondays. Where Grant and I just kind of look around the studio. We're like, there's
Lost
no
puppies.
we really are. We're like, there's no
Aw.
reason for us to live, and
Well,
then you
I
show
mean,
up.
we're not going
Okay,
that far.
okay, maybe not that far exactly, but either way, we're always happy when you're here. So you have your thingamabopper for us today.
All right. So the story I'm going to tell you today is about a boy.
What's the story?
It is a story.
Ooh,
It's a
I
little
like
story. It's about a senior named Blair Epting.
Okay.
He goes to Hammond High School. They're the Skyhawks in South
Ooh,
Carolina.
That's a cool name.
And what's really cool about this story, it's just so heartwarming, let me tell you. He has dwarfism, and he is the manager for the football team at Hammond High. And so sweet. He always wanted to be able to play in a game.
Okay.
And for senior night, when they were playing against another team, they let him play, and he scored the first touchdown. And
Wow.
not only did his team rejoice, but the other team was all in this big huddle with him, and they were all jumping around, so excited. I'll have to post a video for you.
That would be awesome.
For everyone
Yeah,
to
please.
see.
I think I've
It
seen
is
that.
so
Yeah.
cool. Now, that was back in October.
Okay.
But back now, but now there's been more news regarding this. So it's very cool because South Carolina State has decided to draft, per se, Blair as their manager of their baseball team.
Interesting. Okay.
And head coach, he actually he recruited him, and he saw his wife was reading this story in the newspaper, and she was just crying in the car. He said, "What's going on?" And she showed him the story, and he thought right away, he's like, "I got to talk to this kid. I got to meet him." And one of the cool quotes that I found about this was by Blair's coach of the football team. And he said, "We live in a culture where we define ourselves athletically as how big we are or our stature. But Blair reminds us that the making of a man is in his heart and his spirit."
Aw.
And I just thought that was so cool.
That
and it
is.
was such a great point. And this is just such an inspiring story about Blair, and I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you.
Sports is about destroying people into the boards
Don't
and
listen
into
to
the turf.
That's
And love.
and love.
No love.
Peace and love, baby.
Just
That's how it
destruction.
works. No, that's a beautiful story.
I
I
thought
really
so,
I really
too.
like that, and it's nice to see, as chaotic as the sports world is nowadays, to have a nice, heartwarming family story, as it were. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say they're going to make a movie out of it, but it still is that kind of
Oh,
story
yeah,
where you want to cheer for the little guy, as it
Yeah.
were, and have him. And it's not a dwarfism
Pun.
pun or anything, but you want to.
Yeah.
It's not, Grant. Jeez, I'm not that heartless. But you want to cheer for the guy that's not, the big star, the
Exactly,
tall, dark,
exactly.
and handsome, as it were, like I am, and just not. No, I'm not saying. Anyway,
And like you
should
were
just
saying,
stop
I probably should.
in a world of with sports as it is right now, you see with Aaron Hernandez just now
Exactly.
being accused of one murder and a couple of others that are they're working out right
Yeah,
now and
yep.
will be working out in May. That's just it's sad to hear about those kinds of things. It's heartbreaking, and then when you see other stories like this, it just gives you faith in humanity.
It does,
again.
and unfortunately, the way the media works too is this is probably just like a little
Oh,
blip
yeah.
story, and it's not. People are more focused on who messed up today, and who can we embarrass on national
Exactly.
TV instead of look at this heartwarming story where something good actually happened. Which it's unfortunate that's the way the media world works sometimes, but I'm glad that you brought it to our attention so we can share it with all of you out there. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Happy Jackie Robinson Day, by the way.
Oh, Jackie Robinson, what a guy! Is it 42 Day? That's what it is, right? He was 42, right?
Yeah.
That's right. The first black MLB player.
Well, not the first. Is it
I thought he was the
to,
first.
be big name.
the first big
big
one?
name,
But
first big
is
name.
there, I think there was. Oh no, it might have been because they had the Negro League
Yes,
teams.
but he was
I-
the first into the
I
majors.
think he might have
Yeah.
been the first into
Yep.
the majors.
Okay,
cool.
well,
Sorry if we got that wrong.
it's all good. Sorry, Jackie, we love you.
The
Anyway,
movie was good though.
I
42.
love
If you've
42.
if you've ever seen the movie, if you have not ever seen the movie 42, you need to go see it.
I
It's
agree.
a great movie.
I absolutely
Anyway.
agree. Anyway,
So, What If Wednesday?
it is What If Wednesday. Thank you, Laura. Somebody knows what's going on around here. All right, Laura, we'll let you lead off since you transitioned nicely for us.
All right. So my what if for today is what if instead of just having your normal draft where you pick all your fancy people or whatever for your team, but they also had a manager draft. I thought that would be cool. What would they base it on? Would they base it on like stats of how much water that you could carry or how fast you could write down your team's stats or what do you think? What if they did that? How cool would that be?
She's super serious about this
I
too, so I'm
am.
trying to stay serious with
I'm going to
this.
make this a thing.
I know you should. I think it would be helpful because having the right manager to bring water, to keep stats, to do all of that is important. Now, obviously, there are crews, basically now. Like, there are your stat crew, your water boys crew, all of that. So it's important to have the right crew. So I think crews would be drafted, not necessarily players.
Right.
But it's helpful. Having those behind-the-scenes people make teams fluid.
My comment will be I agree.
Okay. That was very intern Laura of you.
Yes.
Like, they're awesome, they're great. I
They're
agree.
so perfect.
Exactly. All right, Grant, your what if?
My what if is going back to actually college basketball and looking at Duke, and my wife actually, she made a comment. I want to say this quick. We're just talking. We're in the car. I forget what we were talking about. It was about basketball, and then she said a comment that I did not expect her to say, and this goes back.
I was
to,
dumbfounded when you told me.
This
too.
goes back to what Liz was saying a couple shows back, to the whole sports fanatic
Yep.
tip thing. My wife said, "But yeah, Duke is normally a one and done team too," and I was like, "Where? How did you know that?"
I've never been more attracted to you.
Right? I was like, "Who are you? What have you done with my wife?"
Exactly.
But
It's an imposter.
going along with that, what if teams, mainly like Duke, were not more one and done teams? And maybe more of an important question is what if college basketball, the NCAA, put more of a strict lock onto how many years you need to play college ball before you can declare for the NBA, like 3 years, like the
NFL,
football
yeah.
has.
I think it's a great idea. I've been pushing for that for years, and I will continue to push for that until I'm both feet in the grave, because I don't think one and done is the right way to go. You need to be able to develop these young men and make them actually understand what it means to not only be athletes, but also be men in the real world.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too. Like, college is a time where you not only grow in your athletics, but you also grow as a teammate and what that means. And I think that college ball does something for them, and that they need to be prepared for that in that NBA world.
Right, and then also, my thing is so are you not going to get a college degree? And what if the whole basketball thing doesn't work out for you?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Athletes especially that are relatively good, forget, there's life after professional sports. At least a good 30 to 50 years after that.
And that goes along with the whole concussion thing that we were talking about a couple weeks ago, and bringing into the question about the NFL and its concussion controversy and everything like that, with Chris Borland?
Yes,
was it?
Chris
Borland
Borland, yep.
retiring after just playing one season. It's weird saying he retired, but he did because he was concerned about concussions and thinking about life after, whereas there's other players are not really thinking of that.
Exactly. All right. And my what if for you guys is, what if we actually ended the show on time for once? That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
What? I think the world would explode.
Exactly.
We just like talking, and we
There's
have
nothing wrong with that.
We have a lot of things to talk about, and I don't think anybody is mad at us.
No,
for it.
definitely not. All right, well, this has been another exciting edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Intern Laura, thank you.
Yeah,
we
thanks for
appreciate
having me.
you, Grant. Always a good time. NHL playoffs. Keep an eye out for Grant's official predictions for the NHL playoffs. Now that he knows he's going to do it.
Yeah, now that I know,
Now
I
that
will
he
get one
officially
out.
knows. But anyway,
Fill out your brackets.
exactly. Intern Laura, do you want to sign us off today?
Sure. Bye, everyone.
Perfect. Okay. I was expecting a little bit more than that, but it's all good. All right.
Thank you, Sports Radio America. You're the best.
Nailed it.
Even better. All right. For Grant Coppersmith and Intern Laura, I'm Baxter Colburn. We'll see you guys all again on Friday. Have a great rest of your hump day.
Hump day.
There you go.